Mini episode 57 of the FDH Lounge is brought to you by the Pullens Group, delivering public affairs consulting and marketing services for small businesses trying to grow. Follow them on the web at pullensgroup.com.
A long time ago, on a gloomy, wet Cleveland spring night, two men stand alone amidst the late-night drizzle. Their voices echo across the vacant station parking lot as they debate the merits of the great American radio show that have been missing for far too long. On that night, an idea was born. That idea became the FDH Lounge. Welcome to the FDH Lounge.
Welcome to mini episode 57 of the FDH Lounge and our 16th adaptation of the FantasyDraftHelp.com Insider in this format after 7 seasons on our previous platform. This is FDH Managing Partner Rick Morris here with our NFL Week 16 version of the Insider as we deliver our lineup advice for this slate of action. First of all, since we have different platforms where this is available, we urge you to view this on our fantasy blog at fantasydrafthelp.blogspot.com because of the links we posted that precede this webcast. In particular, we have links to our Fantasy Football Draftology 2011 guide, Google News and CBSSports.com for injury news, and the NFL.com Week 16 homepage for scores and updates. Additionally, we will update there as needed with any big news during the weekend. Look on the blog for Fantasy Newsletter Volume 4, Issue 50, posted on December 21st, to find the weekly fantasy newsletter with the accompanying links where this video is embedded. We've got some additional preface notes that we'll be delivering every week as well. First of all, our advice is probably a bit different than some in the industry. We're not the place to go regarding the question of whether or not to play a healthy Aaron Rodgers this week. Aside from reiterating our list of gimmies, we don't discuss them beyond that. We're also not part of the movement that overstates the importance of week-to-week matchups. Sadly, if you bungled your draft or auction, there's not much except a stroke of great luck on the waiver wire that can salvage your season. Now, in shallower leagues where you've been able to pick up the likes of Cam Newton off the wire thus far, you're doing well. But you hardly need a fantasy football industry source to tell you to do that. We play the percentages on giving our advice, which is all that anyone can do, even those in the industry who purport to own a crystal ball. You'll always get intellectual honesty from us. Before we get to our list of constants for the season, let's review who's already been scratched from the list: Peyton Manning and Jamal Charles. Kenny Britt wasn't an every-week play for us yet, but he was right on the verge when he went down for the season. Our first additions to this list for the 2011 season start with the pitcher and catcher combo of Cam Newton and Steve Smith in Carolina. We've also added Matthew Stafford, Wes Welker, Ryan Matthews, Jordy Nelson, Jimmy Graham, Rob Gronkowski, Eli Manning, and Victor Cruz to the every-week list. Now, here's our list of constants that we have had since the start of the season. When healthy, you don't jerk with these guys. You leave them in your lineup regardless of scary matchups. At quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Phillip Rivers, Drew Brees, Michael Vick, Tony Romo, and Matt Schaub. At running back, Chris Johnson, Adrian Peterson, LaShawn McCoy, Ray Rice, Mo Jones-Drew, Arian Foster, Rashard Mendenhall, Michael Turner, Darren McFadden, Matt Forte, Peyton Hillis, Ahmad Bradshaw, Frank Gore, D'Angelo Williams, Jonathan Stewart, LeGarrette Blount, and Steven Jackson. At wide receiver, Andre Johnson, Roddy White, Calvin Johnson, Greg Jennings, Hakeem Nicks, Reggie Wayne, Mike Wallace, Larry Fitzgerald, Miles Austin, Deshaun Jackson, Mike Williams, Tampa Bay, Dwayne Bowe, Marcus Colston, Jeremy Maclin, Vincent Jackson, Des Bryant, and Brandon Marshall. At tight end, Antonio Gates, Dallas Clark, Jason Witten, Vernon Davis, and Jermichael Finley. Now, our advice is relative, and there are exceptions to every rule. For example, if you have more than one quarterback, we recommend you do have to bench one of them unless you're in a league with some really funky position requirements. As a general guide to our approach, we factor in a PPR assumption since so many leagues have at least some component of that in their scoring system these days. Additionally, our advice is able to be applied most precisely to a 12-team league in terms of the proportions of value. As such, based on the players who are our perennial recommendations for the season, there are 10 QBs, 18 running backs, 21 wide receivers, and 7 tight ends who are always worth playing if healthy. Those baseline numbers provide a useful guide into the strength of various positions from week to week. In a 12-team league, that means in an ideal week we can recommend at least 2 additional QBs, 5 additional tight ends, and approximately a dozen running backs and wide receivers, assuming that your league has a flex position. Folks, you're listening to the FantasyDraftHelp.com Insider.
No one in this country can ever pronounce my name right. Hey, it's not that hard. Like, Nai-E-Nanajad.
Yeah, well, at least your name isn't Michael Bolton.
You know, there's nothing wrong with that name.
There was nothing wrong with it until I was about 12 years old, and that no-talent ass clown became famous and started winning Grammys.
Why don't you just go by Mike instead of Michael?
No way. Why should I change? He's the one who sucks.
Okay, with our lengthy but necessary setup out of the way, let's get into this week's best lineup plays. At quarterback, the depth is decent as we can recommend 7 additional passers. Joe Flacco, Tim Tebow, Andy Dalton, Kyle Orton, Matt Moore, Mark Sanchez, and Matt Ryan. At running back, the depth is not great with 10 additional recommendations. Ben Tate, Willis McGahee, C.J. Spiller, Cedric Benson, Beanie Wells, Michael Bush, Reggie Bush, Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis, Kevin Smith, and Darren Sproles. At wide receiver, the field is okay with 12 additional players to recommend. Torrey Smith, Early Doucette, A.J. Green, Mario Manningham, Santonio Holmes, Plaxico Burress, Antonio Brown, Percy Harvin, Malcolm Floyd, Doug Baldwin, James Jones, and Julio Jones. Tight end is pretty good with 7 additional recommendations. Greg Olson, Owen Daniels, Dustin Keller, Heath Miller, Brandon Pettigrew, Brent Selleck, and Tony Gonzalez. We like to single out some players as stronger options each week, so here's our top 5 in no particular order. Mark Sanchez, Matt Ryan, Tim Tebow, Reggie Bush, and James Jones. Additionally, each week we take a look at NFL teams we consider to be all in or all out. All in constitutes recommendations at the full range of QB, RB1, WR1, WR2, and tight end. All out teams have only their perennial recommendations to go on every week with no marginal players suggested. Our all in recommendations are Philadelphia and Atlanta. There are 10 all-out plays this week. Indianapolis, Cleveland, Tampa Bay, St. Louis, Jacksonville, Tennessee, San Francisco, Chicago, Dallas, and Washington. So there's your recommendations for NFL Week 16. We welcome any questions, and we may answer them here from week to week. Become a friend of FantasyDraftHelp.com on Facebook, or hit us up on Twitter, where our identity is the FDH Lounge with no spaces and the T, F, D, H, and L capitalized. Thanks for checking us out. Go break off a little value on your opponent this week, and be sure to sample our other Nothing is Off Topic mini episodes, including our recent conversation with rock superstar Steve Perry from the FDH Lounge.